Alright everyone, welcome back to Umineko and its second half. We are finally starting episode 5 at long last, and it comes with even a new intro, which I actually rather like. I like it a lot more than the first season's intro, if anything. I like the song better. Everything about it is nice, and I like the setup to how everything is coming about already in the start of this new season. So, for anything else guys, hope you all continue to enjoy. Thank you again for all love and support. And here we go. Alright everyone, welcome back.
おいおいとなると決定的じゃねえか。
魔女が犯人で魔法で殺人を犯したわけでない限りね。あんたなの？あんたがジョージを、主人を殺したの？どうしてよ？どうして？私は殺していません。私は何も。
In a panic and with a voice that really couldn't be called flowing, in a manner that was, to put it coldly, unsightly, Natsuhi denied the suspicion placed upon her. However, there was no longer any way around it. The ghost stood up, brushed back her long hair, pointed at Aunt Natsuhi, and said it one more time.
あなたが犯人です。
Who on earth are you, newcomer?
後宮夏日さん。
I like Season 2's new intro.
夏日です。開けてください。
Natsuhi yelled as she knocked loudly and repeatedly. Shortly after, there was a heavy clunking sound and the sound of the door to Kinto's study unlocking could be heard. As the door opened, a heavily sweet venomous odor flowed out. Natsuhi was always ashamed of how she automatically grimaced at that, even though she thought it rude to the family head. Krauss was waiting for her inside the study. Natsuhi flew into his arms.
お父様は、お父様は。
落ち着きたまえ。今南條先生が見ている。
With an uncertain gait, Natsuhi went towards the center of the study, supported by Krauss. There, a dignified bed fitting for the head of the Ushinomiya family could be seen, along with Nanjo, Genji, and Kumasawa.
南條先生。 お父様は。
After sighing deeply, Nanjo left the side of the bed. On the bed, Kinzo could be seen lying down sleeping.
大往生だ。
Well, at least he wasn't burned this time.
金蔵さんも心残りはなかっただろう。
お父様、お父様。
Sobbing, Natsuki put her head against the chest of the man who had fallen to a sleep from which he would never awaken.
奥様、どうかしっかり。
お父様、お父様、こんな突然なんて。
Natsuki couldn't stop her tears over the death of Kinzo, whom she had loved like a second father. Kumasawa rubbed Natsuki's back, consoling her. Krauss slumped into his late father's favorite chair. By sitting there, he might have been immersing himself in memories of his departed father. Or perhaps he thought that by sitting there, he might be able to understand just a bit of the madness of Kinzo's later years, which had eluded him to the end of his father's life. Najo turned his back and looked down over the outside world through a crack in the curtains. It was the same thing he had often done when Kinzo sat in the chair contemplating a chess move.
同じ死ぬならせめて寝込んで1年後に死亡とか。もう少ししかるべき準備の猶予期間を設けてから死んで欲しかったのね。それは逆だ。最後の瞬間までお元気だったことを喜ぶべきです。
You should also be glad he died in his sleep. That's like the best way to go.
建前上はそうなるがね。
Considering like the past couple of times he always came out burning. Nanjo understood that as well. This was the death of Ushinomiya Kinzo, a man who had risen like a comet and glittered like a supernova in the post-war world of business. His funeral would probably be a fantastic scale. And it would also be the ceremony marking Krauss' inheritance of the headship. I was gonna say leadership. He would have to arrange everything at the host of the event, carry out funeral diplomacy perfectly, and make it clear that Ushinomiya family would still hold enormous influence in the political and financial spheres. As Nanjo watched Krauss, he was vividly reminded of the time when Kinzo had been suddenly selected as the Ushinomiya family head, a time in which Kinzo had been lost and confused. Nanjo could remember that well, and for that reason, he was able to understand Krauss' distress and sympathize with it. Natsuki's sobs eventually subsided. Seeing this, and leaving Kumasawa to care for Natsuki as a fellow woman, Genji returned to Krauss. And he lowered his head slightly, as though asking what should be done.
手続き等は私と源氏さんでやろう。クラウスさんはまずは親戚の方々に連絡した方がいいでしょうな。
Krauss, with his hand still over his eyes, didn't respond. Perhaps even though he had known this day would come, Krauss really couldn't hide his shock at how suddenly it had reached them.
私と南條先生にお任せを。旦那様はまずは奥様とご相談いただくのが良いかと思います。
Maybe she heard that, or maybe it was a coincidence. As though responding to Genji's words, Natsuki came over. Her eyes were red from crying so much. But she apparently understood the heavy responsibility that had been imposed on the two of them even better than Krauss did.
これからはあなたが栄光ある後宮家の当主です。お父様の後を立派に継いだことを内外に示しましょう。この夏日、あなたの妻として棺を並べる日までお仕えする覚悟です。
Trying to encourage her husband, who was overcome with shock, Natsuki lent him some reassuring words. When Krauss finally lowered the hands that had been covering his face, he looked up at the ceiling with a blank expression and let out a deep, deep sigh.
どうかしっかり。お父様の残したものを食い荒らそうと目論む輩が大勢いるのですよ。私たちはお父様の名誉と財産を守るために戦わなければなりません。それが後宮家当主の最初の仕事ですよ。
分かってる。 分かっているとも。
南條先生と源氏はお役所や葬儀業者への手配をお願いします。特に源氏、お父様の葬儀にふさわしいものとなるよう特に手配を頼みますよ。
かしこまりました。
それから南條先生、お父様は病院でお亡くなりになったわけではないので、
場合によっては解剖が入るかもしれませんな。
なんとかなりませんか。亡くなったとはいえお父様の大切なお体です。傷をつけるなど耐えられることではありません。
気持ちはわかる。だがそういうところをきっちりすることも大切だ。それにこう言ってはなんだが、難しい親族の方々が多いんじゃないかね。
There was no way to know what those inheritance vultures might try to find fault with. They might squawk that there was something suspicious about the cause of death, and use that as a point of contention to start some trouble. Right now, not only was it important to pay Kinzo's remains the respect they were due, but there was also a need to focus on solidifying the position of the new family head, Krauss.
わかりました。必要最小限にお願いします。間違ってもお父様の威厳が損なわれるようなお姿にしないように。
それは大丈夫だ。安心しなさい。とにかく金蔵さんのことはわしらに任せて、夏日さんはクラウスさんのそばにいてあげなさい。これからが大変なんだから。
分かっています。あなたもどうかしっかり。
Krauss was still staring lazily at the ceiling with a befuddled expression on his face. Natsuki understood the shock and heavy responsibility. She felt that she understood her husband's feelings as well as anyone possibly could.
親族への連絡は私、今だけは休まれてください。
Krauss didn't respond. Natsuki thought that he was being a little bit weak, but that just made it all the more important for her to support him right now. Seeing her husband like this actually stirred Natsuki up, and a resolute expression rose to her face.
これから忙しくなります。今できることを始めましょう。夫はきっとお父様と二人きりで話したいこともあると思います。私たちは一度ここを退出しましょう。
そうでございますね。その時間はきっと今しか取れないでしょうから。
Being in charge of a funeral is tiring work. There's no time to shed tears. If Krauss were ever to be given time to cry for his dead father, that time would have to be now. Everyone agreed with Kumasawa's words. Even then, Krauss continued to lazily gaze up at the ceiling and didn't respond in any way. Natsuki urged the servants to go.
私はジェシカにも話してきます。今やあの子が次期当主です。それにふさわしい自覚を持つようによく言い聞かせなくては。
待て。
As they each started to make their way out of the study, Krauss finally spoke. They stopped walking.
はい。
待て。
はい。
Hadn't she already stopped walking just like her husband had asked? But despite that, he had once again told her to wait. From those slightly weak words, Natsuki understood that he had probably stopped her because he wanted her to be by his side.
お前たちは下へ。私は夫と言います。何かあったらここに電話するように。
かしこまりました。だから待てと言っている。
When Krauss suddenly raised his voice, everyone jumped and turned around. Unable to comprehend what she had done to spark her husband's wrath, Natsuki ran up to him.
どうしましたあなた。私は何か失礼なことを口にしてしまいましたか。だったらお許しを。
いや、違う。そうじゃない。そうじゃない。少し待て。時間をくれ。
ええ、分かっています。心を整理するためにも必要です。 私たちはその時間をあなたにあげようと、ここから静かに出ていくだけですよ。
だからそれを待てというのだ。いいか、誰もその場から動くな。一歩たりともだ。疲れたなら、椅子にでもソファーにでも好きに座ればいい。だから何も喋らずに静かに黙って、何もせずにいろ。
Those unreasonable words felt like a glimpse of how Kinzo used to be. Natsu couldn't hide a slight surprise at those words, which made it seem as though Kinzo had possessed her husband. Natsu told the servants to wait for the time being. She ordered them to sit on a sofa a short distance off, approached her husband, and spoke to him in a small voice.
あなたがお命じになれば、夏日はいくらでも待ちます。とどまります。ですからどうか、お気を鎮められてください。
違う。そうではないのだ。そうではないのだ。
Was it really his father's blood, or was he actually being possessed? Krauss's disorderly style of speech strongly resembled Kinzo's. As she watched this, Natsu felt with even greater certainty that Krauss was indeed Kinzo's son, and that he was the true successor to the head, more suitable than any other person.
夏日、こっち。
Krauss stood up and headed towards the window, trying to lengthen the distance between himself and the servants, waiting on the sofa by even a small amount. Natsu realized that he must have something secret that he wanted to talk about.
はい、あなた、何事ですか？
親父に死なれてはまずいのだ。
しかし、もうお亡くなりになりました。そういうわけには参りません。
そうじゃない。今はまずいんだ。
どういうことですか？
親父の財産を担保にしている。相続問題になれば隠しをせない。
はあ、担保ですか？いかほど？
メロディーランドの時、近藤君を応援したことがあっただろう。
あの方とは縁を切れと申し上げたじゃありませんか。私には断ったと言ったはず。どうして？
男の義理というものがある。断れなかった。
Krauss claimed to hold honor as a virtue. However, Natsu knew that he most often used this as an excuse after he couldn't bring himself to pass up a deal.
お金に余裕があるならいざ知れず。この島のリゾート計画でかなりの借金をされたのではありませんでしたか？
ああ、したさ。方々で恩人に世話になったのだ。それらを返済するためにも座しているわけにはいかない。返済するためには金がいる。金を生むためには金がいる。金がなければ始まらない。この島の計画だって企画会社がおかしなことにならなければ順調だったのだ。都の役人とも連携は取れていた。東京都の新しい観光スポットになると知事の太鼓判ももらえていた。私の根回しは完璧だったのだ。たまたま巡り合わせとタイミングが悪かった。ちょっとした運のすれ違い、事故みたいなものだった。
あれは事故なんかではありません。詐欺です。あなたは騙されたのです。初めから彼らはこの島のリゾート計画など描けていなかったのです。
そんなことはないぞ。土方君のビジョンは先見性にあふれていた。世界と未来に目を向けた広大な視野は、私が夢だと信じていたものなど猫の額ほどの広さしかないことを教えてくれた。夢が広がる。世界に未来に。夏日も一緒に聞いていただろう。
Did you see his plans, or were you just listening to his words?
ええ、聞いていました。そしてお帰りになられた後に申し上げたはずです。あの方はうさんくさい。語るのは未来ばかりで地に足がついていない。
Oh, so you had nothing.
これ以上お付き合いしてはならないと。
土方君は立派な好青年だ。彼の生き様からは学ぶことも多いぞ。彼は若いが尊敬できる。彼のことを侮辱することは許さんぞ。
あなたは同じことを月旅行の時にもおっしゃいました。先見性がある、未来がある、夢があると連呼され、その挙句はいかがでしたか？荒唐無稽な話だったと、あなた自らがお認めになったではありませんか。私はNASA の高官とか名乗るおかしな男が現れた頃から、これは絶対におかしいと確信しておりました。
あれはあの外国人が国際的な詐欺師だったに過ぎない。あの件については私も曽根崎氏も被害者だ。彼の先見性は今をもって間違っていない。将来必ず世界の大富豪が宇宙旅行をたしなむ時代が訪れる。そしてその最初の事業は民間一社によって独占されるだろう。着眼点は間違っていない。それを利用して世界中の投資家を騙している国際的な詐欺集団がいて、
曽根崎という男もその一味だったと申し上げているのです。
I was just gonna say, what if he wasn't a victim but pretended to be and got the money alongside the other dude and just left Krauss out of it?
あなたはどこまでお人よしなのですか？どうしていつもうさんくさい話を疑いもせずに乗ってしまうのですか？
訂正しろ。曽根崎氏は優秀な未来ある男だ。うさんくさくなどない。彼の語る夢は未来を先取りしているからこそ、それが見えるものには妄想にしか見えんだけだ。女のお前には未来など見えん。
ええ、女の私には未来など見えません。でも現在なら見えます。私の目の前で狡猾な二枚舌の詐欺師たちに丸め込まれ、騙されてなお妄信している哀れな夫の姿なら見ることができます。
黙れ。お前には金も事業も経済も何もわからん。夫の仕事に口は出すな。妻は家事だけをしてればいい。お前は黙っていろ。
Without another word, Natsuki fell silent just as Krauss wanted. She was already far beyond anger and sadness, and the emotion that lay on the other side of those was almost indifferent pity. Krauss had always been frightened of Kinzo since the days of his youth, and had come to subconsciously admire the way his father lived. Without realizing it, he had come to believe that he could only be recognized as a man in his own right if he surpassed his father. However, Kinzo had been a mad genius like the likes of which had never before been seen in the Ushimiya family's long history. His talent was a gift from heaven, and it definitely wasn't genetic, much less something that could be learned. I mean, you also need good business sense as well, which apparently Krauss is lacking in. Natsuki instructed the servants not to tell anyone about Kinzo's death, and dismissed everyone for the time being to give the two of them a chance to talk alone. Then she invited Krauss to her bedroom, and made him tell her everything about their current financial situation. There were things that Natsuki hadn't been told about under the assumption that a woman had no business knowing. Natsuki had herself made a point of avoiding this area in the past, thinking that it wasn't a wise place to intrude on such matters. However, this might also have meant that she had been remiss in her duty as a wife to protect her family. The depths of this sin had been made quite clear to Natsuki. Krauss was probably tired of trying to defend himself. Perhaps because he had gotten a headache, he hid his face and sank into silence. Natsuki noticed that the water in the electric kettle was boiling and stood up to refill her cup with black tea. And when she touched the cup with the black tea, she noticed for the first time. The sound of the cup and saucer clinking together told her that her fingers were shaking. Krauss had built up a large debt to obtain funds for his various projects and to cover the losses when they failed. Of course, he had put the mansion and property up as collateral. However, doing such a thing above board would have resulted in the mortgage being registered. In other words, there would have been a record that Krauss had put Kinzo's wealth up as collateral to obtain a loan without anyone's permission. Krauss couldn't afford for Kinzo, Ava, and the others to learn of such a thing. Therefore, he had been putting those assets up as collateral using the worst possible method. Oh, you. Ah, there are words I have for you, Krauss.
それはどういう意味ですか？
It means he's an idiot. What Krauss is trying was saying probably meant that he had, in essence, signed away the rights to their assets. If those assets had been used as collateral for a loan, then Krauss would have had some options under the law. He would have had to deal with a bank which would have absolutely no compassion, but they would have been able to work something out within the rules set by society. However, sending away the deed and power of attorney was a whole different story. In short, even the mansion they were living in was at risk. If the person holding the deed were to decide to ignore his agreement with Krauss and sell the mansion to a third party right this moment, they would have no recourse whatsoever. Far from using their house as collateral for a loan, this was basically the same as selling it to borrow money.
Tsumari, 後宮家の生殺与奪は金貸したちの手に委ねられていたわけですね。彼らがほんのわずかの気まぐれを起こして突然この家を売り払ったら、私たちは今すぐにも荷物をまとめ出ていかなくてはならないということですね。
Yep, that is exactly what that means.
理屈上はそうだ。だが、取引の相手はいずれも社会的信用のある人物ばかりだ。
Oh, I don't trust whomever you chose as reputable.
サラ金じゃないぞ。経済人同士の信用取引だ。私も相手を信用している。
I don't trust that you trust them.
相手だって、私に金を貸すことで私が大きな事業を成功させ、投資した額が大きくなって帰ってくることを信用している。委任状を預けたのは、私の誠意と事業の絶対の成功を疑わないからだ。ここで渋ったらどうなる？自分の事業に自分で自信が持てないことになるだろう。
If your ventures had been successful, we wouldn't be in debt now, would we? Natsuki only barely stopped herself from saying it. You shouldn't have. You should have just told him straight to his face.
お父様は亡くなりました。すると、どうなりますか？あなたの借金が白日のもととなり、他の兄弟たちに咎められることになるわけですか？
それだけでは済まない。
I honestly didn't think Krauss would be this irresponsible, or for that matter, this gullible.
多分、刑事訴訟にも及ぶだろう。
刑事訴訟？
Yeah, fraud.
どうしてですか？
君は知らない方がいい。
Oh, that's even worse.
とにかく、絶対にこのことを誰にも知られてはならんのだ。
Krauss looked at the door shamefully, shaking his head over and over. If it would come to criminal charges, then he must have broken some laws. He had probably been so intent on raising a large sum of money that he hadn't paid any heed to appearances. Krauss had seriously believed that his many projects would definitely succeed and return huge profits. So he had figured that even if he broke a few laws, he would be able to pay everything back before too long and pretend that the whole thing had never happened. This might have lessened his resistance towards breaking a couple of laws. And now Kinzo's death, the worst possible thing had occurred, and soon he wouldn't be able to keep it all hidden.
私たちはどうなるのですか？
心配することはない。君は信じてくれんが、景気は今確実に上向いているんだ。私が都心で投資した不動産価値はみるみる上昇している。今それらを統合して巨大ビジネスタワーを建設する計画が進んでいる。これは私のこれまでの投資の中で最も確実で最も大きな成功をしているものだ。ただそれは実をつけるのにまだ時間をかける。絶対に確実だが今すぐというわけではないのだ。
その事業の成功は借金を返済するに足りるものですか？
もちろんだと思う。これまでの借金を全て帳消しにできる。だから信じてくれ。もう少しだけ時間が欲しいんだ。
しかしお父様はもうお亡くなりになってしまいました。もうその時間はないのですよ。
分かっている。分かっているとも。だからどこかから金を調達して今すぐに借金を返さなくてはならない。
You're gonna borrow even more money now?
とにかく金が必要なんだ。 金が大量に今すぐうわーうわー
Krauss roared and clutched his head, writhing about as if in pain. As Natsuhi watched, several conflicting emotions swirled about in her chest. She felt pity for her husband, but at the same time, she felt he was a fool. Oh, yeah, because he definitely is. And she also felt a mixture of anger and regret towards her own irresponsibility in letting her husband run wild for so long. It should have been clear to him well before today that they were in a very critical situation. Alright guys, I'm going to end it here for today. Thank you all for watching. We are finally beginning the new episode of the newest season. I'm considering a new season now. So, if anything else, I'll see you all in the next one. Thank you all for watching.